All right, so we're here to talk about this Starfall mystery saber that's sort of a Scrapflex kind of inspired design. Yeah, so this is a pretty simple setup. So we'll drop down to the table, we'll go over the chassis and the functions real quick, and then we'll hop back out. We'll show a couple blade styles. I'll go over a little bit more in terms of functionality than I might normally. So let's check it out. All right, so we're here to talk about this Starfall. I'm thinking this is a mystery saber. It's definitely a Scrapflex because we have this Scrapflex looking shroud up here that I know Nick cut from hand, but it looks pretty cool. Pretty simple, but super comfy. I mean, can be one-handed, could be two-handed, easy access to the buttons. This does have a Shtok V3 emitter. And then we have a fully removable chassis. So we just unscrew the pommel. And then he'll drop out. And so we got our Starfall logo, Proffie V2. We are including this 18650 battery. This is 3000 milliamp hours. So on the chassis, we do have positive and negative terminals identified, but spring side's your negative, flat part to the spring, nipple to nipple, right? We've got high amp kill switch, and then Nick requested that I do this 20 millimeter fully enclosed Smuggler's Outpost speaker because another installer did something for him recently, Carlos at Kalymian Custom Sabers, and he was really impressed with the sound quality. So we wanted to try that on this kind of standard chassis that I did for him a while back. But we do have Shtok Rotary system for removable, and so inside you'll see the pogo pins. So all we have to do is hit our kill switch. You'll get our boot sound. The config is on the SD card, but it's only there for backup. This sports the Starfall font package, 8 fonts and, or I should say 8 presets, so 8 fonts, and the last 9th preset is a battery level indicator. If you need to do any reprogramming, I did put this tape here. It's unnecessary because this is a brand new chassis and it's got a good press fit. But over time, if you're reprogramming the Proffie, whether you lift it up or not, you don't need to. You can fit a 90-degree angle in here and get into this micro USB port, or you can use some tweezers to pull the SD card out if you're just adding fonts back and forth to the SD card. But I did include some tape here just in case. You can take that off if you're not going to need it. But like I said, over time, if you're lifting the board up and down because you don't have a 90-degree cable, then tape will eventually be needed. So I just went ahead and include some. So yeah, we got our boot sound. Now we just toss it in here, and then the pommel will do the rest. And then in the last like quarter turn, you'll feel those pogo pins depress. So you know you've got connection. If the saber is facing you, left side is the power, right side is your aux. So you can just hit power. And now we're up and running. Got smooth swing, aux for blaster blast. And we do have gesture controls, so twist on or twist off, and then thrust on, which is like a horizontal forward motion or a pulling motion. I'll demonstrate that with the blade in, but when we use that, we'll get into battle mode, and again, I'll demonstrate that. So when we're done, you can just undo the pommel, pull it out, hit the kill switch. If we don't need to charge the battery, we can just leave it in, or we can pop it out. If you can't get your fingernail in there, sometimes what I like to do is just hold it like this and then smack it like that, and you can get it to come out a little bit. So yeah, so let's go over a few more features real quick, and then I'll show a lot more functionality with the blade in. This does take a 7/8 diameter neopixel blade. It is programmed for a 32-inch length, which I have to demonstrate. Anything I don't cover will be included on a printout of instructions here, and you can reference that. But to move forward in the presets, we'll hit the aux while the blade is off. And then again, to ignite, we can hit power or our gesture controls. If we need to go backwards, we can point the hilt down and hit aux. To start the track, there's two different ways. We have track player mode I included on this, and then I designated a track for each preset. And the way to get to that is have the hilt point up and hold power for 1 second, and then let go. And that will play the designated track. But if you're in horizontal position and you hold power for a second, you'll get into track player mode, and it'll start playing something. But if you rotate the hilt, it'll go to the next track, and it's just in alphabetical order. And if you want to keep playing the track, you hit power, and now you can move the saber around and it'll keep playing. So that's track player mode. But again, if you've got the hilt upright, it'll play the designated track. And that changes for each preset, but again, if you're using the track player mode, that's across all the presets. So again, hit aux to move forward. You can see so the emitter is just going to duplicate what's going on in the blade style. It's just there in case you get a blade plug in the future or something like that and want to have a little shine through. So if you're not going to be swinging it around with the blade in, you can have some color. So that covers this. We'll take the chassis out for long-term storage. I do have this on a timer for, I think it's either 10 or 15 minutes. I don't remember what I set it to. But if you're not doing anything, it will go into a sleep. It's not a deep sleep, but it won't respond to gesture controls. And then the first button press, which would be power, will wake it back up and you'll get that boot sound again. And again, that's after either 10 or 15 minutes. So we can just store it for long-term use, whether you're going to put it up on a shelf or not. Oh, almost forgot to mention one thing. So this does come with an Allen key included for your blade retention, and your blade retention is the topmost set screw. These other two set screw hold the neopixel connector in place, and then the rotary PCB holder in place. But these are different set screws, which will not work with this size. So if you lose this, when you go to find another tool, whether that's a multi-tool or not, just remember not to mess with these because you will mess with the Saber's functionality. You only want to use this for the set screw. And this does have a deep blade socket, so it'll hold on to the Saber real well. The blade really well, and should be really fun to wield. So again, set screw for your blade retention is between these two greeblies, and then these hold your emitter PCB and your rotary PCB, and just don't mess with those. So the rest of this I'll cover with the blade in, and we'll go through a couple blade styles, and then we'll wrap it up. All right, so when we're ready to wield our Saber, we can get our 7/8 diameter 32-inch neopixel blade here, and then we want to make sure our blade retention screws backed off just a bit so that the inner hole is clear. And then we just need to barely rest those on the PCB pins. You don't need to jam it down in there. Gravity will do the work. You set your set screw. I do have the chassis on right now. So again, left button is our power, right is our aux. To move forward in presets, you'll hit the aux. To move backwards, point the hilt down. To start the track that I designate, hold the Saber upright and hold power for 1 second, and then let go. If you want to get into track player mode, you can hold it sideways. Same button. You'll hear a little sound effect that it's in track player mode. And now, as you rotate the Saber, different tracks will play until you hit a button, till you hit the power button, to select that, and it'll keep playing now, and it won't rotate through. And then again, power button to hold to turn it off. If the Saber is ignited, the only way to get tracks to play, and it will only play the designated track, is it has to be upright. So we're ignited and we're upright, we hold power, we'll get the track to play. Oops, gotta hold it. If the Saber is ignited and we're not upright, holding power for a second will be a force effect. You'll notice the animation changes on the blade, and that'll happen for as long as there's something playing. Now, each font in the Starfall collection may have a mix of quotes or effects like you saw there, or one or the other. Some fonts have just force effects. Some have a lot more quotes than force effects. So it's just going to depend on which preset you're on. So we'll move forward in the presets. We'll twist on, twist off. We also have thrust on, which is a horizontal, like forward motion, right? You can also pull it as well. It's got to be that kind of perpendicular effect. So now gesture, since we used a gesture control, and this works for twist on as well, we're now in battle mode. So battle mode just means that lockups will start automatically if you clash the saber and keep the saber in place. And they will go away when you pull away. So a lockup can also be a melt if we're horizontal. Okay? You can rotate the saber to kind of change the colors. And then when you pull away, it'll stop. If you're pointed down, you'll get your drag effect. Same thing until you let go. If you prefer buttons only so that you can control when those things happen, just hit the power button. Okay, and so now a clash, just a clash, until we hold either power or aux and do the same thing. Okay, and that'll be until you let go, okay? So one thing to note about those two on commands is that if there is a pre-on, of which there's only one on the Starfall font collection, the pre-on will only happen when you button press. So let's go to Ruin.
Heroes Ruin.
So since this one's kind of got a deep blade socket, this may not show as much as it would on other hits, but we'll hit the power button. And that was just like a quick 2-second thing, or split-second thing, but it did that little red to white color change, and then it did the ignition. If we just twist on, it won't happen. It just goes straight into the ignition. So that's only on this font, but if you add fonts in the future that have pre-ons, it'll, depending on which preset you're on, it will probably do something like that. I do have instructions for you. Anything I don't cover will be on there, and you can learn more by going to a web URL. So the only other couple things I want to go over are color change. So when the saber's on, if you hold aux and tap power, you'll get that little sound. And now we're in color change mode, and you can see that it stopped animating. And so now you can pick the color, and as you rotate, it'll change.
Red.
And I've also done it so it'll tell you what color it's specific.
Orange, red, dark orange, orange, gold, yellow, green, yellow.
And if we want to accept, we'll hit power. If we want to revert, we'll hit aux.
Green.
So I'm going to go ahead and accept. And so now we're back to the unstable blade style. And it will remember that when you turn the blade off, or if you turn the power off and you start back up. Right, so now we're green. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to red. There is a note for if you want to get an in-between color, and then I'll let you read how to do that, but it's just another set of button commands. So with color change in mind, the only other preset that will not have any effect like that, you won't get into color wheel, it'll just jump between two colors, is the very last font.
Reconcile.
Cornhorn. Because this is based off of it, like dual crystal phase thing from the Cornhorn book I Jedi. This blade style just jumps between a white color and a light purplish color. So this is our standard color. This is white. Now if we hit color change, instead of jumping into the color wheel, you'll see it did a wipe into purple. And so now we're in purple. This one also has kind of a swing effect that as you swing it around will flash. But and it will remember that I stayed on purple. So that if I want it back to white, just hit aux or hold aux, tap power. Oops, I hit a clash there. But we went back to white. If we're in the off state on any preset, That same command, holding aux tap power, is also our battery level indicator, and it will tell you a percentage. So if I do that, hold aux tap power.
Battery level 52%.
So anything that gets down and probably to the 30s, it just depends on what blade style you're on. But you'll start to get down to a certain color range where if you're running the Saber with like a blade going, you may start to hear a speaker crackle, at which point that just means go ahead and charge the battery because your sound's going to be compromised. So that's the last sound font. The last preset
Battery level
is a battery level indicator, and we can see because we're like at 52, we're way down here, or I think it's at 52. We're down here in the yellow. This will go from a blue or green, I think it's green at the tip, to blue, down to red. But the further out from the tip on the blade it is, the more charged it is, and then the closer to the tip it is, the closer to the emitter it is, the less charge. But obviously, like I said, you can just hit aux and tap power.
Battery level 19%.
Okay, so we're actually at 19%, which means I definitely should be charging this Saber. But that'll cover most of it. Anything I don't cover in this video, again, is on a printout. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me and I'll try to enlighten you. So thanks for checking it out.